After roofing, I started on the house wrap. I went with a 2-ply system that fulfilled Oregon's requirement for house wrap, which is stricter than much of the country. But ultimately, I'm glad to have the better quality material. Before doing the siding, I put up the windows, the window trim, and trim for the rest of the house. I used PVC for the trim because I appreciate that it doesn't rot and will be maintenance free long term. First things first, you want to start with your starter strip, which is, in our case, 1 1/4 inch piece of this hardy plank that I've cut down. And this was just the cut in that I primed. But we're gonna set this first because we need that first course of hardy plank to have that same angle out as the rest of them. I'm just shooting these nails where I see fit. When we get up to the top, we'll be doing 24 inches on center, but because this is shooting into a rim board, one solid piece, there's none of that 24 on center, so we can just shoot it however we want. So when you're laying out your first course, what you gotta do is make sure that it's completely level, because when you're using gecko gauges, like I am, the rest of the courses are gonna be dependent on this one being level. So again, if you're doing this as one person, you got to get a little creative. So what I've done is I've set up a little support on one end over there to hold it up while I then shoot it in here against the trim on this side. I've gone ahead and marked on the wall here where my studs are, because you want to shoot this in at the studs. And I have them on 24 inches on center. If you have 16 inch on center studs, you would do it every 32 inches on center, so every 2 stud bays. But with 24, it's every 1 stud bay. And then you want to leave about 1/8 of an inch gap between the side of a trim piece and then the hardy board. So I'm going to space that out just a little bit. You want to shoot your nails about 1 inch from the top, or 3/4 of an inch. So I set a little mark on the top of my gun here that shows how high up to hold it from the top. But I'll probably end up just eyeballing it mostly. All right, so we'll go ahead and shoot it in. So what I'm gonna do, just to double check that this is level, is I'm gonna put a little torpedo level on top.
Make sure it's 1 inch on center.
What? So to start the next row, take your cutoff from the last piece, and again, make sure that it's gonna land on a stud, because you want the 2 planks when they butt joint to be on a stud, and I've marked these beforehand. So I took this and I marked it, and then take your gauges, and you want them to sit roughly, this is a small example, of course, most boards are 12 foot and larger than this one, but this still shows the concept. You want them to sit about a third in from the board, just to support it well. So you don't want to tighten them too tight, because then it'll push out. But in this case, we're looking good. So we drop this piece in. You're gonna want to use some of this flashing, and so you slide that up behind, and you want it to come down at least 1 inch on this previous board. Oh, looks like we hit some metal underneath. We color matched the paint from our existing house and went with a high quality Behr exterior paint. I used an entry-level Graco sprayer and managed to get the first coat on in under an hour. I ended up doing 2 coats and hand painted the trim white.
So this is the old and this is the new. And you can see that we have different siding. So this is the original cedar shingle. This is called Hardy plank, and we saved about $2,000 to $3,000 by going with this different siding material. So it was totally worth it. I mean, you can tell that we've added on to the house, so I don't think it's a super big deal that it's different siding material. And then we just paint matched it so that it was gray all the way through.